Satire is an inadequate label for Paul Beatty's fiction. His fiction out-weirds satire. And you don't close a Paul Beatty novel with a clear sense of who or what has been skewered. Yes, he mocks pieties of all kinds, easy narratives of progress, political righteousness, racial and ethnic solidarities, spokesmanship itself. He calls every bluff, and he sometimes provokes, but provocative and irreverent are not the adjectives we should settle on. I think they're too empty. Beatty's novels are written within and against their own time. Their plots deliver contrarian burlesques of a multicultural age. The reader enters a world of perverse loyalties and ethnic mismatch humor. In Beatty's first novel, The White Boy Shuffle, we meet a grocery store owner in Los Angeles who is half black, half Korean, and therefore burned down her own store during the Rodney King riot. In Slumberland, which is set in Berlin, we meet a self-hating half-black neo-Nazi, and we think poor Gerhard. Absurd premises abound. In The Sellout, our narrator has reinstated slavery and racial segregation. The narrator of The White Boy Shuffle has been moved by his mother back to the hood, and he has an ancestor who escaped into slavery before the Civil War. Slumberland centers on an avant-garde black saxophone player who defects into East Germany during the Cold War. So, commitment to absurd premises is Beatty's subject, or one of them. But the novel's commitments are themselves deep enough to transcend their own absurdity, and this is why they are not merely irreverent. They are about commitment. They're especially about aesthetic and artistic commitment. Beatty satirizes inclusion and exclusion, but his novels are also about eccentricity, ugliness, and beauty. So in a profound sense, and I guess this is my argument, if introductions have arguments, in a profound sense, Beatty's fiction is concerned with secret knowledge. The arcane is as important as the profane, and the arcane runs very deep. You might be included or excluded by the depth of allusion to jazz and avant-garde music in Slumberland, for instance. In The Sellout, the arcana are from psychology, agriculture, and animal husbandry. His books gravitate towards aesthetic experiences that are hard to capture in words. So the prose is hyper-allusive, with acrobatic run-on sentences that would be hard to read aloud without taking a breath. Games with the reader are another indication of this concern. The Sellout has a cameo, for instance, by noted community organizer --R --O --, and it is left to the reader to fill in Barack Obama. So here, art for art's sake becomes game for game's sake, or maybe strategy for strategy's sake. So I've maybe made these novels sound challenging, and they are challenging novels, but they're also funny, with a joke per page density rivaled only by maybe Catch-22, which I might ask you about. The pleasure of reading a Paul Beatty novel comes from being in on a joke that transcends the form of a joke. We will get some glimpses of that this afternoon, and as Martin said, the Dutch translation is available now from Prometheus, and now it's my pleasure to invite Paul Beatty to the stage, potentially to disagree with my reading of him. Please join me in welcoming Paul Beatty.
Hello, George, thanks, man. That was, I agree, I guess. We don't even have to talk, I agree. Let's go home and drink. All right. I'm just going to read, like, the first, 4 or 5 pages, somewhere in there. It's from the book's prologue. This may be hard to believe coming from a black man, but I've never stolen anything. Never cheated on my taxes or at cards, never snuck into the movies or failed to give back the extra change to a drugstore cashier indifferent to the ways of mercantilism and minimum wage expectations. I've never burgled a house, held up a liquor store, never boarded a crowded subway bus, never boarded a crowded bus or subway car, sat in a seat reserved for the elderly, pulled out my gigantic penis, and masturbated to satisfaction with a perverted yet somehow crestfallen look on my face. But here I am, in the cavernous chambers of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. My car illegally and somewhat ironically parked on Constitution Avenue. My hands cuffed and crossed behind my back. My right to remain silent, long since waived and said goodbye to, as I sit in a thickly padded chair that, much like this country, isn't quite as comfortable as it looks. Summoned here by an officious-looking envelope stamped "Important" in large sweepstakes red letters, I haven't stopped squirming since I arrived in this city. Dear Sir, the letter read, congratulations, you may already be a winner. Your case has been selected from hundreds of other appellate cases to be heard by the Supreme Court of the United States of America. What a glorious honor. It's highly recommended that you arrive at least 2 hours early for your hearing scheduled for 10 a.m. on the morning of March 19th, the year of our Lord. The letter closed with directions to the Supreme Court building from the airport, the train station, I-95, and a set of clip-out coupons to various attractions, restaurants, bed and breakfasts, and the like. There was no signature. It simply ended, sincerely yours, the people of the United States of America. Washington, D.C., with its wide streets, confounding roundabouts, marble statues, Doric columns, and domes, is supposed to feel like ancient Rome. That is, if the streets of ancient Rome were lined with homeless black people, bomb-sniffing dogs, tour buses, and cherry blossoms. Yesterday afternoon, like some sandal-shod Ethiop from the sticks of the darkest of the Los Angeles jungles, I ventured from the hotel and joined the Hajj of blue jean yokels that paraded slowly and patriotically past the empire's historic landmarks. I stared in awe at the Lincoln Memorial. If Honest Abe had come to life and somehow managed to shift his bony 23-foot, 4-inch frame from his throne, what would he say? What would he do? Would he break dance? Would he pitch pennies against the curbside? Would he read the paper and see that the union he saved was now a dysfunctional plutocracy, that the people he freed were now slaves to rhythm, rap, and predatory lending, and that today his skill set would be better suited to the basketball court than the White House? There he could catch the rock on the break, pull up for a bearded three-pointer, hold the pose, and talk shit as the ball popped the net. The great emancipator. You can't stop him, you can only hope to contain him. Not surprisingly, there's nothing to do at the Pentagon except start a war. Tourists aren't even allowed to take photos with the building in the background. So when the sailor-suited family of Navy veterans, 4 generations deep, handed me a disposable camera and asked me to follow at a distance and secretly take photos of them while they snapped to attention, saluted, and flashed peace signs for no apparent reason, I was only too happy to serve my country. At the National Mall, there was a one-man march on Washington. A lone white boy lay on the grass, fucking with the depth perception in such a way that the distant Washington Monument looked like a massive pointy-tipped Caucasian hard-on streaming from his unzipped trousers. He joked with passersby, smiling into their camera phones and stroking his trick photography priapism. At the zoo, I stood in front of the primate cage, listening to a woman marvel at how presidential the 400-pound gorilla looked sitting astride a shorn oaken limb, keeping a watchful eye over his caged brood. When her boyfriend, his finger tapping the informational placard, pointed out that the presidential silverback's name coincidentally was Baraka. This is a true story. Yeah, do you remember this? Yeah. Yeah, we were at the zoo and yeah, anyway, it's a true story. Anyway, sorry. Sorry, I lost my places. Anyways, coincidentally, was Barack, and the woman laughed aloud until she saw me, the other 400-pound gorilla in the room, stuffing something that might have been the last of a big stick popsicle or a Chiquita banana in my mouth. Then she became disconsolate, crying and apologizing for having spoken her mind and my having been born. Some of my best friends are monkeys, she said accidentally. It was my turn to laugh. I understood where she was coming from. This whole city's a Freudian slip of the tongue, a concrete hard-on for America's deeds and misdeeds, slavery, manifest destiny, Laverne and Shirley, standing by idly while Germany tried to kill every Jew in Europe, Why, some of my best friends are the Museum of African Art, the Holocaust Museum, the Museum of the American Indian, the National Museum of Women in the Arts, and furthermore, I'll have you know, my sister's daughter is married to an orangutan. All it takes is a day trip through Georgetown and Chinatown, a slow saunter past the White House, Phoenix House, Blair House, and the local crack house for the message to become abundantly clear. Be it ancient Rome or modern-day America, you're either citizen or slave, lion or Jew, guilty or innocent, comfortable or uncomfortable. And here in the Supreme Court of the United States of America, fucketh between the handcuffs and the slipperiness of the chair's leather upholstery. The only way I can keep from spilling my ass ignominiously onto the goddamn floor is to lean back until I'm reclined at an angle just short of detention room nonchalance, but definitely well past courtroom contempt. Thanks.